lot of listeners ask me what it takes to put together an Inside the Magic podcast. I decided to put together this video to show just a small segment of what I have to do to get ready for the show. This week, I decided that I wanted to feature a binaural recording of Spaceship Earth. I didn't have one recorded already, so I was off to Epcot. For the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to take you to Epcot to show you what a typical solo trip to the parks is like for me. Once I passed through security, I stopped to put on my binaural microphones. Then I moved on towards Spaceship Earth. I generally like to stop near the fountain to take it all in for a second. No matter how many times I see it, the sheer size of Spaceship Earth always amazes me. Now it was on to the entrance, which may look a little different to some of you. Some new paint marks the new Siemens sponsorship of the ride. As usual, there's no wait time, so it was time to hop right on. I boarded the attraction to create another fine binaural recording. Unfortunately, Spaceship Earth was not going to cooperate today.
Ladies and gentlemen, our time travels have been momentarily delayed. Please remain seated. Your time machine vehicle will begin moving again at any moment. Please remain seated.
We stopped right at the start of the ride. This was only the beginning.
Spaceship Earth is a slow-moving trip.
We moved on through the safety video, which is awful in my opinion. It clutters up what used to be a wonderfully peaceful opening to a classic Disney attraction. On this video, I had hoped to bring you some of my favorite segments of Spaceship Earth. While riding, though, my plans quickly changed. Well, the ride changed them for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated in your time machine vehicle. We've had to make an unscheduled stop.
First was yet another unscheduled stop. It was shortly after this stop that I discovered that I was also sitting right behind Mr. I must take a flash photo of every single scene in the ride. Here's a compilation of just some of his flash pictures.
Ladies and gentlemen, our time travels have been momentarily delayed. Please remain seated. Your time machine vehicle will begin moving again at any moment. Please remain seated. We'll resume our journey shortly. Thank you.
As you can see, this constant use of the flash can get really irritating. Fortunately, he decided to stop when we reached my favorite section, the communication tunnel. Unfortunately, the ride decided to stop too.
Please remain seated in your time machine vehicle. We've had to make an unscheduled stop, but we'll continue our journey momentarily.
That about wraps up my trip on Spaceship Earth. That was pretty typical of the rest of the journey. Not the most pleasant experience I've had in there, but hopefully you enjoyed the binaural recording on this week's show with the unscheduled stops edited out. Next, it was time for some lunch. As always, I headed over to the electric umbrella for a quick bite to eat. This is easily the best spot for food in all of Future World, and I'll bet you never guess what I ordered. Once I had my food, I headed upstairs to grab a window seat. Did you figure out what I ordered yet? That's right, Disney chicken strips. And I devoured them pretty quickly. Now it was time to head back outside to Pin Central to look for a few items I had seen online that I wanted. Fortunately, they had exactly what I was looking for, as well as these snazzy new bags. I then stopped for a moment to enjoy the Epcot fountain with the monorail passing by in the background. Next, I checked out the wait time sign to find out what attractions I could quickly get onto. I was off to Future World West. I decided to pass through Innoventions West to get there.
Nothing to see here, folks. The future, yes, they're on the corners.
Tom Morrow 2.0 is always fun to watch for a little while. A whole lot more fun than this Where's the Fire exhibit.
I'm your travel guide on the road tomorrow, and there's some...
Moving on, I noticed a new exhibit called Too Small to See, which featured lots of edutainment involving atoms, molecules, and other microscopic things. These two kids were playing with the atom transporter. I'm not sure if they learned anything, but they definitely had fun. Other areas of Too Small to See revolved around magnifying tiny objects until they were really huge so you could actually see them. There was also a dark booth called Stretch a Molecule, in which you're supposed to interact with giant projection screens and, you guessed it, stretch a molecule. No one seemed particularly interested. I then moved past the Great American Pizza game over to Rockin' Robots. This is where you can control large robotic arms to make them interact with objects around them, creating industrial-sounding music. It's usually pretty crowded there. I finally made it out of Innoventions into Future World West. My options were the Seas for the Seas with Nemo and Friends, the Land for Living with the Land, and Imagination for Journey into Imagination. I decided to head over to Journey into Imagination as I hadn't ridden it in a while. This ride's queue has many amusing items, my favorite of which is the large lenticular of Figment and Eric Idle. I'm not a huge fan of the Imagination Institute theme for this building, although I love Eric Idle's comedy. I don't know if he fits very well here. After a very short wait, it was time to ride.
5 human senses can help.
Figment used to be a great character, but this latest version of the ride, they have somehow turned him from being very lovable to just flat out annoying.
Yeah, I know all about the senses. There's sight, sound.
Here's a good tribute to the old ride. This door reads Dean Finder, a reference to the Dream Finder from the old ride.
It's not about listening with your ears. It's about listening with your imagination.
I'm not even sure that makes sense, Figment. Listening with your imagination? Anyway, here's some more Figment.
With F-I-G-M-E-N-T, you can see things differently.
Like Spaceship Earth, this ride was also having its share of problems. Finally, here's the Figment Overload finale. I think they put this scene in just to silence all of the fans screaming that the previous version of the ride needed more Figment. You can't get much more Figment than that.
Of inspiration is at the heart of all creation, right at the start.
Now it was off to the Seas with Nemo and Friends. After a short waltz through the fun beach scene queue, it was time to board the now famous Clam-mobiles. And it was time to go find Nemo again.
Nemo.
I passed through some herds of jellyfish. Yes, jellyfish.
Alright, Mr. Smarty Pants.
Finally, I reached the coolest part of the ride. Luckily, the Clam-mobiles slowed down when I reached this part, so I'll be quiet now so you can enjoy it.
We're here with all our friends in a big blue world. It's a journey that never ends. What's waiting out there? Totally. So much to know. In the big blue world, we're ready to go. Yay! In the big blue world. Big old blue. I'm gonna go and
I got out of my clammobile, and decided to explore the living seas. The seas with Nemo and friends. Turtle Talk was closed as it's being moved, so I decided to head on over and visit the manatees. Then I headed over to Bruce's subhouse for a minute. Next, I was off to the observation deck upstairs. I don't visit this section of Epcot nearly often enough. It was a lot of fun watching all of the various sea creatures swim about. I decided it was time to call it a day after this and head out, so once I was done watching the sea creatures, I cut back through Innoventions. On my way out, I noticed an exhibit I had been meaning to visit but always forgot about. It's called Segway Central. I've always wanted to try out a Segway, and I finally got my chance. After a short presentation, I got to ride on a Segway for about a minute on a small course, which you see here. It was a lot of fun and definitely made me want one. Unfortunately, I didn't get any video of me riding it. I definitely recommend visiting this exhibit if you get the chance. Here are some of the new Segways that have come out or are coming out. On my way out, before leaving Epcot, I always stop at the Art of Disney store to see if there's anything new. They had their usual assortment of incredible prints, paintings, and sculptures. Fortunately, there was nothing new that really interested me, so my wallet stayed in my pocket for once. It was time to leave Epcot.
You have like little stars that glow on your ceiling and your walls.
Well, you've now experienced a typical visit to the parks for me. I go with a single recording in mind, this case Spaceship Earth, eat some food, ride a few rides, and head on home. This is only a small portion of what it takes to put together Inside the Magic. I hope you enjoyed it.